Welcome back, everyone. How is it going? It's been a while since we've been hammering it out. I'm one of your hosts, Cody. Here's Nath.
Yep, you folks probably know me by now. You may even know Cody more than me at this point. I am Nath or Anathema, also sometimes called Shane. I'm the guy who sits on the Discord server and occasionally shows up to bully people. It's my job description, I'm sure.
I don't know what the contract says, but that's at least what I know that you do around here. I'm one of the software developers who likes to get involved in being up in front of people and talking and being on streams. It's a lot of fun to get away from the code from time to time. Speaking of getting away from the screens and talking in front of people, we were recently at PAX, well, or at least some of us were. Nath, you stayed at home with your alpacas.
I chose to remain on the farm and not, in fact, go to a giant convention center during a time of potential public health crisis.
So I went to a farm of people instead, but it was a lovely experience. We went to PAX. We presented a panel. Our guest actually was there with us on that panel. Alex, we'll bring him on in a bit here. But it was a lot of fun to meet and interact with the community. We got to meet with a lot of cool other partners like publishers and people making different items for tabletop gaming. We bought $50 metal mugs that we had unlimited soda refills. We ate questionable Chinese food. It was a lot of fun. We stayed up late doing gaming. Health concerns aside, I had fun.
Well, I'm actually really impressed that none of the staff came back with any kind of COVID impact. So clearly, you guys were super cautious, and being able to network with some industry professionals is always a good benefit.
You know, if there's one thing that we can say about the community that we involved with is that we're all a little bit socially awkward, and so we'd like to stand further away than normal anyway. It was also nice that they mandated vaccines. Everyone was wearing masks, so it was as safe as it could be.
You had a special printed Foundry VTT mask, didn't you?
I did. I got it commissioned from someone I know. We printed out the fabric with the little Foundry dice on, and then we sewed them into double layer cloth masks. Unfortunately, it was like right after that point that N95. Well, I mean, it's good that N95 masks became prevalent, but I got to use them that once, and then I had access to better masks and haven't worn them since. But they were still nice. PAX aside, and thanks again for anyone who came to see us and interact with us while at PAX. We've been quite busy in the past few months since we last did Hammering Out. We are now on to V9 Stable 3. Nath, do you want to tell how many issues did we close for that one?
I think it was in the vicinity of like 100, 120. It was a surprising amount. Normally I'm on top of the development progress when we're dealing with, stable releases and stuff like that. I pay a little less attention to the prototype releases once we've scoped them. But I've had some side projects that have kind of occupied my attention over the last little while. So it was a bit of a surprise when I went to pick up the patch notes, and it was far more issues than I expected. But we corrected a bunch of UI issues, mostly small stuff, which is why there was kind of a longer gap between Stable 2 and Stable 3 than normal, because there weren't really any issues that were super critical that needed to be addressed quickly. So taking our time and getting more into the stable patch kind of works out for everyone. And of course, we had a couple of hotfix patch releases afterwards to deal with some minor changes that were not expected.
But even Foundry makes typos, all right? It happens.
And I mean, realistically, and I think a lot of people will agree that the rate at which we correct issues like that when they are critical and time sensitive is rapid. I would say, and this is a little bit of a boast, but I would say that the rate at which our development team corrects issues that are critical is unmatched in our industry.
I think the quickest fix we've ever issued, and it wasn't even for something we introduced, like SSL certs broke. We identified the issue. We worked with an external company, and we had a resolution and build out within like 4 hours. And that was just incredible to me. Most people hadn't even heard the issue was out yet.
I think we did the announcement that it was an issue, and then 2 hours later had the fix. It was crazy. It still is crazy.
That's not the only thing we've done, though. We've started working on V10. Very exciting. We have the first prototype coming somewhat soon. Nath, any thoughts on when?
Yep, we actually tentatively aimed to release it today, but it's there's a few pieces of it that we want to make sure still goes into prototype 1 that we don't really feel comfortable moving into prototype 2, but we want to give them a little more time in the oven to make sure they're as finished as we want them to be for a prototype release before shoving that out the door. But it's imminent. I'm not going to say guaranteed in the next week or so, but we are very close to a release of V10 prototype 1, and I think a lot of people are going to be really happy about some of the things that we're bringing in.
And for those who are new to the Foundry release train, or at least the one we've been using since V9, the prototype release phase is just that, a prototype. You should not be using your live weekly games and swapping to V10 prototype 1. You should be spinning it up to test out and explore things. This is mostly meant for developers to get access to things as they come out and give us feedback and let us make changes to what we're building to better facilitate third-party development. But if you're an enterprising GM, feel free to download it, spin up a new world, and test out some of our new features. The one that got voted on by the Patreon poll, and it was a tough poll this time around. A lot of people had a lot of strong beliefs in what they want to happen. It was a close fight, but Journals V2 came out in the end. We are reworking how journals work. We're going to make it more of a... right now, I would say it's more like, a good notepad. But in the future, but we're going to move towards more... Nath, how would you describe it as a user? Campaign structuring?
It's kind of a hard one because it is, in fact, building on the journal structure that we already have. I mean, you can already do a lot of campaign management stuff inside the current journal system. Journals V1 brings, a lot of features. The map notes thing is one of the things that I use most often. But as with many of the V1 features that we have for subsets of Foundry, there's always room to grow. There's new things we can do. So being able to review where the gaps are and move forward on them, that's, I think, most impactful. I won't say we're completely redesigning and overhauling in favor of more campaign organization, but it's not far off. One thing that we're flirting with that I don't mind kind of hinting at is the potential for the possibility of replacing Tiny MCE, which many of you may know is the rich text editor that we use kind of not just in journals, but in a lot of places. A lot of game systems use it for like character description fields and stuff like that. So we are looking towards the possibility that may be replaced. I'm not going to say it's going to be because we are still kind of toying with the possibility. But it's on the list to review. There's some pretty big features coming in Journals V2 that I think a lot of people are going to like, including structural and layout changes to the way the journal sheet is presented.
I see, on that note of we're not sure yet. I see a lot of people asking questions like, is it going to do this? Is it going to look like that? we're in the planning phase right now. I don't think we've even written a line of code for it. I might be wrong there. We might have written a little bit, but there will be future dev streams where we will actually have started working on it and have a better idea of what we're doing. So look forward to more information then. There's other things we're doing for V9 that if you check our GitLab, you can see, but we could spend the entire stream talking about exciting things. That's going to be a future dev stream. Outside of working on V10 and V9, we've also been expanding as a business with partnerships. Nath, tell them about our new exciting hardware partner.
So I want to thank a couple of people in the community who, not by name, you guys know who you are, who sometime about a year ago-ish pestered this third-party company to form a partnership with us and provide a more rich and robust virtual tabletop experience for their product. Some of you may have heard of the last game board previously. Those who haven't, you probably saw the announcement this week. We are officially partnered with Game Board to bring the Foundry Virtual Tabletop experience to the Game Board platform. And there's a lot of great news coming on that in the near future, including a stream that was supposed to happen yesterday but ran into some scheduling conflicts that prevented it from being on our menu. There will be a stream for that in the future. Please stay tuned for announcements on that front. But the game board integration is actually really neat. I've only been on the periphery of the project because I'm not a developer, as many of you know. But they actually have ability to pair physical minis with Foundry Virtual Tabletop actors. So when you move the mini on the game board physically, it moves the actor token on your map. And they actually have a discount code, which Cody has been kind enough to drop into Twitch chat, that you can get $50 off of their product when ordering. Its keyboard sounds a little loud in chat. Is anyone actually typing?
Me, sorry. I have an aggressively loud mechanical keyboard, and normally when Matt runs this, Discord suppresses it, but when I run it, sorry, I'll keep trying to mute it.
I should probably mention that we are without our normal producer today. Matt's in process of moving, and we wish him the best of luck on his move, but he'll be back to run things a little more professionally for the next episode. But yeah, Game Board is currently offering a discount from their partnership with us. You can get the discount code through the link that Cody posted in chat, and it's really neat. I'm really interested to see where it goes. I'm not the type to play in-person games, but I think it's a project that has a lot of potential. Speaking of potential and projects, Cody, why don't you tell some folks what we worked on during the last Free Project Friday, and maybe what Free Project Friday is.
For those who haven't heard of it before, Foundry every month at the last Friday of the month sets aside our perpetual list of things that we want to get done that have a priority, and we say, all right, one day of the month, let's work on something that is without looking at priority. It's always, a lot of these things tend to be proof of concepts that, we explore, or, fixing a bug that, has been low priority. Not really, bugs don't tend to be low priority, but, doing a feature that's been low priority for a long time we want to see, or exploring new features and such. A lot of us worked together this last Free Project Friday. Nath, Roman, and I worked on website badges and Discord badges. So for the Foundry website has on your profile a way to show badges being like, oh, I own Foundry, I've been here for 2 years, things like that. And we've always wanted to add more of these. We've just it's never been our priority. So we have coded up and started the design work on several new badges, such as I am a developer, or I have bought Demon Queen Awakens, or things like that. So expect to see those roll out over the coming months as we get the designs done for them. That's the only holdup at this point. On the Discord side of the thing, Nath, you want to mention what you did?
Yeah, some of you may notice that the moderators, community helpers, and developers, as well as staff, now have a little badge icon next to their name. It's just an implementation of role icons, and we have kind of higher quality versions coming shortly. Fortunately, one of the volunteer moderators we have, Unsoluble, was kind enough to generate alternate icons for most that I'll be implementing as soon as I get a spare minute to actually make the file change. But they are indeed nice little 30 by 30, actually I think it's only 20 by 20 because Discord, icons for each role, and possibly more coming soon, but I mostly wanted to target the community developers, helpers, moderators, and staff.
Meanwhile, some of the other people, the one that we want to mention is Atro was like, web workers are cool, I should look at that. And then he's like, you know what, I could write an API to make this easier for people to use, showing how he is the best developer on the team in one day. So in V10, developers will have access to a pretty nice API that allows you to dynamically load methods to web workers to offload things to the background. You can use this for big, long tasks or things like that. We don't quite have the data on exactly when the best time to use it is, but we expect people will build some really cool stuff with it. We'll probably talk about that more in the dev stream as well.
Yeah, I'd say that is solidly in dev stream discussion territory. I'll also hint at, but not go into detail, that one of the other developers on the team is working on a project that will become visible, we think, during V10, but we don't want to make any promises. And I won't say what it is, but it is something cool, and it is related to the canvas. That's all you're getting. I'm sorry.
Last thing before we bring on our guests, every time people ask any exciting news about D&D, and I finally have something. I, Cody Sandrowski, I'm going to be playing D&D a little bit on a boat. While we were at PAX, we met this company called D3 at Sea. They do cruises where they use celebrity DMs, and you go sit on the ship and play D&D for like 4 hours ago. I'm going because it sounds like fun. This will be the most D&D I've ever played. So there's your D&D news.
Yep. Otherwise, we have no news on publishing agreements related to Wizards of the Coast that people always ask about, so let's get that out of the way now. If we have announcements, trust me, you'll hear them as soon as we're allowed to legally do so.
All right, so... yes, this is the right scene. Sorry, I had to double check. I am very excited to bring on our guest, Alex from Crucible magazine, the Mad Cartographer. You may know him. Alex, welcome.
It's good to be here, guys. How are we all
Alex,
doing?
show the mug.
The mug. This is my PAX mug. This is where I met the guys at PAX. I also get this at PAX as well. I got my Foundry VTT t-shirt. Always representing.
Nice.
Covered by a lovely Crucible hoodie, sported by the Mad Cartographer. Yeah.
Well, Alex,
so,
it's nice
Alex,
to see you again.
Nice to see you, Cody. You are in a better state this time than I think the last time that I saw you.
Look, just because I hadn't slept for like 23 hours doesn't mean I wasn't doing great.
Yeah, that'll be it.
Sure, it was sleep deprivation and not alcohol.
No.
Why not both?
No, it was good. PAX was really good. It was really nice meeting you and Matt and Andrew Atropos, and met the guys from Forge as well. So it's nice having a good little team of folks. I'm sure there were other people there, but yeah, can't remember myself. But yeah, PAX was good. I think Nathan was saying before, like the networking side of it, getting to meet people in person. I think that was the best thing about it for me personally, for meeting you folks, and for Crucible, getting our name out there and letting people find out about the magazine. It's pretty good.
So one question that isn't on the list that we pre-generated for you, but we commonly ask this to pretty much all our guests, which is, what's your background and how did you end up in this industry?
So I've done this for 2 years. I started in May 2020, before the dark times. And prior to that, for 2 years, I was actually a childminder. Me and my wife basically had screaming kids running around our house. So I've heard like some of the other people, like I was listening to the end of the year roundup about what everybody's background was. It's all like, oh yeah, I did something similar and I was in this and I was a developer. It's like, no, I did nothing to do with what I'm now doing. But yeah, then kind of COVID happened and other things happened and ended up having to shut that business down. And I was like, do you know what? Some of these map makers on this here Patreon seem to be doing all right for themselves. So I'm going to go have me a go at that. And yeah, so then I started up. I was quickly invited into a Discord group with a bunch of other artists that you'll all know, the likes of Shapeku, Tom Kartos, Forgotten Adventures, DM Dave, Griffin Saddlebag. You kind of like go in and I always say it was like being at a rock concert and then kind of finding yourself suddenly in the green room. It's like, oh my god, like who are all these people? So it all just kind of started off from there, and then right at the beginning, Atropos was part of the Discord group, and he was showcasing Foundry. And I was like, well, I'm all in on this one. And then I just like the month later just changed around my Patreon completely. I was like, okay, we're going Foundry. We're going Foundry hard. And that's that brought the Mad Cartographer to where he's at now.
Yeah, you were one of our first creators who just went all in on walls and lighting for your maps. And I remember you were I think you were the third released exclusive free pack that we did for content, where I just got this message from the chief, and it was like, hey, so I need you to do a content review and work with this Mad Cartographer guy and just have a look at his maps and see what we can do to help him refine the process. And I think there were like 3 maps where I actually had legitimate criticism to offer, and the rest was like, I don't know, he's good. He's good.
Yeah. It was quite the compliment. It was a good experience kind of getting on board, and I think it demonstrated how open the Foundry team is to getting creators on board. But yeah, for me, it helped because I was a Fantasy Ground user for a long time, and then as soon as I saw what Foundry did, I'm like, this thing just knocks everything out of the park. This is where the VTTs need to be. This is what everybody will want their VTTs to be. And so for me, I was all in because I got it. The things that were being showcased, and it was the stream that we were in when Atro was showing us stuff. There was a lot of people in there, but there were people that didn't even play D&D. People didn't play VTT, so it doesn't necessarily click with people until you kind of have that bit of a background experience with it. So from that point, I've just been a fanboy. And as far as the Mad Cartographer goes and our Patreon, we have just tried to make the most out of it without absolutely killing myself month in, month out. We embrace as many of the modules that we can. We do some crazy modular stuff with Token Attacher. We've really started leaning into levels the last few months. We've got some big changes coming with the Patreon next month. But yeah, I love it. I love it. I love Foundry. I'm an absolute fanboy, but with all good reason because it's great.
Someone asked in chat, and I saw someone answer, but what is Mad Cartographer?
So Mad, originally, so the first theme that I ever did, the whole concept was map a day. So I was the map a day cartographer, and the first theme that I did was a caverns theme, and I released a new map every day, a new battle map. And this isn't, I don't use stuff like Incarnate or Dungeon Draft. This is all hand-drawn stuff. I was building the assets every day, and it was, they were all unique maps. It wasn't like a map and then next day it was a variant. I was doing a map and variants, and yeah, that lasted 1 month. I launched myself. I was the map a day cartographer, and then the next month I'm like, well, I can't keep that up, because the moment you start kind of going into the business side and you have to do all the socials and you have to kind of talk to people and answering emails and kind of everything, all the work that goes behind, it's like, oh, okay, I have the time to make a map a day. I just don't have the time to do everything else that goes with it. So yeah, over time it kind of scaled back, but we stuck with the Mad Cartographer. I still do an unhealthy workload, an unhealthy amount of content every month for the Patreon, but now we're a two-man map making team, and then we have a third person, Harrison, who's handling some of the business side, and and he's now going to be kind of taking over making the Foundry stuff. So I'll get Nath to double check his stuff to make sure it's up to par.
You told me the story of your name at PAX, and literally on the flight home from PAX, I listened to a podcast, and there is a guy named Songade Bard, Sad Bard. I'm like, was this inspired or just happenstance?
I mean, I thought it was clever at the time. I don't think it's necessarily the most unique thing. So I don't know. Maybe he heard me. Maybe he's a patron. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
So, in addition to doing far too much content production in the space of a month, you decided you had not enough things occupying your free time and decided to take on another massive project. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Crucible magazine? Yeah,
so I'm obviously by trade a map maker, and I'm connected into a network of a lot of other people, a lot of artists, a lot of writers. And just through one of the themes that I'd done previously for the Mad Cartographer, I worked with a writer called TJ from the DM Tool Chest. And I really liked his writing, and I wanted to work more with him. So initially I was like, hey, do you want to kind of come on board and make some adventures with me every month? We'll do Mad Ventures. See, that was the initial concept. We'll do a couple of adventures every month and, kind of see how it goes. And it's like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. And then I sat back, and it was while I was on holiday with the family. I was like, do you know what? I'm going to pitch to see if he wants to make a magazine instead. And I sat down and I did this big presentation, this big slideshow, PowerPoint. I sent it over to him, like, what do you think? And he was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, let's do it. And so that's kind of, that is the two top people of Crucible is myself as the map maker and TJ as our writer. And it's been great fun, but man, it's been hard work. It was September last year that we started putting pen to paper for issue 1. And we started it in September thinking we were going to launch in November. That just wasn't even close. But yeah, that was the birthplace of Crucible. Pretty good fun.
Was the plan always to do a Kickstarter, or at what point did you decide this I need more money behind this, let's kick this off with the Kickstarter?
Yeah, it was the moment we decided that we didn't want stock art, because obviously with my own stuff, I'm a Patreon creator with the Mad Cartographer. We wanted this to be a step away from being a Patreon creation. There's a lot of 5e content. There's a lot of TTRPG content that made by Patreon creators. You know, there's no slight on it or anything like that. For those that do, it's fantastic. But we kind of wanted to be, I don't know, maybe like the next thing. Lofty goals. And so we're like, okay, we need to hire proper artists. And when you approach artists that do this as a full-time job, you have to pay them. And there you go. I can see you're scrolling through it. We've got some fantastic artwork. And it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to make each issue. And I'd had a lot of success with, I did a summer bundle, a Foundry summer bundle last year. And that went through the roof, brought us in loads of money. So we actually had quite a lot of startup capital to try and get it going and to kind of throw a load of money into making this issue. But we very quickly realized we're probably going to need more to keep making this every month. And so, yeah, it had to be a Kickstarter. And we're literally using a Kickstarter unlike other people do. Most people have a product and just want to sell it on Kickstarter. No, we need a Kickstarter to actually fund the project. And it's done all right. It's done all right for itself. We're not doing too bad.
And the Kickstarter, I noticed, closes in less than a week, right?
Yeah.
It's 5 days out.
5 days left, yeah. So we'll normally see a bit of a spike at the end. Last 48 hours, you normally see it kind of kick up a little bit. And then people will be able to add on any extra add-ons and things like that. But yeah, at the moment, for us, it's, you know, the Kickstarter is great. It provides a bit of security. And the success of the Kickstarter, all that really kind of did was determine whether we could bring on more staff, whether we could bring on people to do the layouts. Because a lot of stuff when you're making a magazine that you've got to think about. You've got to think about sensitivity readers, you know, accessibility. If you're going to be putting on a PDF, you know, for people that are dyslexic or they have, you know, other kind of various things for this difficulty reading or visibility, that kind of stuff. So you've got to be careful with a lot of things, and you know, everything starts piling up and costing more money if you want to do it at the level that we want to do it. We don't want it to be you know, just a PDF that we throw out every month. It's going to be a printed magazine, it's going to be a PDF, and it's going to be a Foundry VTT magazine. All the content that we put in there in each issue is being built straight into Foundry. So that's 4 full adventures, maps with each one. We've got subclasses, magic items, new creatures, and with the Foundry VTT issue that people can back for, they will also get the PDF for free, because we've not bothered putting kind of like the magazine content in, such as like the comic or the interviews or the letters. The Foundry pack issue is pretty much the playable content, and there's a hell of a lot of it. And for anybody that is interested, then go and check out the Kickstarter, because you can get it for free. So there was a thing with the launch issue, because we had this kind of bit of a startup fund at the beginning. We were able to make the first launch issue, which is 92 pages long now. And we managed to, we've put it out for free. The launch issue is completely free. You can get the 92-page PDF or the Foundry VTT module, and yeah, just get it. Go and check it out. It's looking pretty good. We're bringing the experience of somebody. TJ's like been a writer for another magazine. He worked for Broadsword with DM Dave, and then obviously me with my map making experience and making Foundry content for the last 2 years anyway. We've got a pretty damn good product at the moment.
And where exactly did the Crucible name come from for the magazine? How did you end up choosing that?
Are you asking this because you know? Because I'm not sure if you know. I can't remember.
I don't actually know.
Do you not? Literally, because we wanted to tie it to Foundry. It's literally a Crucible because of Foundry. So I approached Atro, and I was like, look, I want to kind of like really go all in with us being about Foundry. He knows how big of a fan I am through the Mad Cartographer stuff, and so I was like, we want to call the magazine Crucible. That's what we're going to call it. You know, and it kind of ties in with the whole, you know, a crucible being an adventure. You know, it's kind of like a baptism of fire kind of thing, but it's also a crucible for a Foundry. So like the name really worked, and he was like, yeah, yeah, I was going to use that name for something in the future. So I was like, ooh. He's like, right, I'll let you do it. I'll let you have it. So thank you, Andrew, for giving me
Andrew was
permission to
working
jump on
on
that.
the Crucible system, his custom tabletop RPG system. I wonder if he'll just rename it or if he'll just keep it the same. But either case, it's a cool magazine name too.
Yeah, yeah.
People are already asking, what does it mean to be a Foundry ready magazine?
Foundry ready. So at the moment we are using Scene Packer. So when you install the module, it will instantly unload everything. For anybody that's checked out what was the one you did, the Demon Queen thing?
Awakens.
Yes. See, I don't play Foundry content. I just make it. So kind of when you unpack it, then everything is split into different journal entries. So you're not having to kind of comb through different things. It's all very much linked, and there are map notes that are already placed on. Very happy to hear that there's some changes with V10. So we'll kind of see. It's definitely going to kind of change up how we do stuff. So we've gone half in with the Foundry content. I mean, it's all works. It's all playable. It all looks great. Matt from the Foundry team helped us work how the subclass, because we've got a unique subclass in there, the Summoner, which is an arcane tradition. It's all about building up your familiar, and your familiars get stronger. So he was like, okay, do this, this, and this with it, and kind of helps us tweak it there. So, like I said, we're getting some good support from the Foundry peeps. All the items are pre-built, which come with some amazing art. We have a fantastic artist working with us called Sinlair. The artwork that he does is just to die for. And so there's six magic items that are all pre-made. All the stat blocks are pre-made. The maps are pre-walled, like I would with Mad Cartographer stuff. So you've got your lighting, you've got your sounds, you've got canopy elements where we can. The only thing we don't do is we can't fully embrace all the other modules. We can't do level stuff, and we can't do token attacher stuff, because if the support stops, it breaks the magazine, which is what it is. I'll just keep prodding the Foundry team to bring some of these things on board.
It's a lot of these things are all planned. It's stuff we definitely have on our roadmap. It's just always a matter of which one do we do first. Exactly.
I mean, I feel that in a personal way, especially at the moment, like trying to make, like, we're already in the process of making issue 1. So what we released was issue 0, because it was the free launch issue. So we're already making issue 1, and we're trying to run a Kickstarter, and I'm trying to make stuff with the Mad Cartographer, which I've decided to, for some reason, bite off more than I can chew this month and do a load of token attacher stuff. So yeah, which priority is the biggest priority is just always, it's just always spinning plates, right? But yeah,
we're experts at spinning plates on the Foundry team.
Yeah, well, I could tell that when I was at PAX, when there was like one of the nights where Cody was there as well, and we're all having a few non-drinks because we're all just tired, but we were having a few drinks, and it was definitely me to Atro saying like, okay, but I need you to do this, and you need to do that. He's like, Alex, yeah, I know, I don't need you to tell me. So I had to bridge that gap between infuriating him and just encouraging him. And I think the fact that I'm sat here, I think I stayed on the right line of it, just about.
Yeah, walking the line between encouraging Andrew and infuriating him is my job.
Yeah. But no,
as a GM, I got a copy while we were at PAX of the, what you had at the time for the magazine.
The demo
magazine.
Sure.
Normally you read through content that's on paper or even in PDF, you're like, this is cool, but a lot of time is involved in like actually like typing out, that and importing it into VTT, Normally I only jot down 1 in 5 words and don't actually have like the whole journal anymore. It's really cool that you can read it. And like when as a GM, like I like being able to read an adventure ahead of time and then have it ready and typed out for me with no prep that's really exciting to me. So I hope that format becomes more popular.
Yeah, I mean, and the way we handle our descriptions as well is quite different. We take a step away slightly from how other people do it. For me, I'm always more of a I like my descriptions to be a little bit more padded, and the DM can omit them versus DMs that aren't really sure how to pad out the description themselves. So we kind of go into a lot of detail with stuff, whether it is just adventure descriptions or like the details of some of the ideas and the concepts that we've got. But yeah, I think we want people to be interested in sitting on the toilet on their phone reading it, or they're on the train going through the PDF, and then like, okay, right, yeah, now that they're learning about it, and then they get home and it's just ready to play. And it's all just plug and play. You've got 4 pretty decent sized adventures. We've had a few people streaming them. We've had like some 4-5 hour streams where they've not managed to get through one of the ventures, so they're kind of one shot, but not necessarily one session, one shot. But yeah, and then there's just a ton of other content that goes with it, and they're all themed. So every issue is a different theme as well. The first one was lairs. We went a little bit safe on it because we didn't necessarily know where we're going to go. For issue 1, it is Rising Tides, bit of an homage to everybody that's helped us. A rising tide lifts all ships, and that's kind of like nautical and pirate themed and that kind of stuff. And the intention is to actually tie the Mad Cartographer, because we do themes every month with the Mad Cartographer maps, tie them into the magazine. So it's like, hey, here's some adventures and stuff, but you need more nautical stuff. Well, this month, come and check us out over on the Mad Cartographer as well. So yeah, if you want just like a ton of content, then just come and buy it all from us.
But you have content not just for people running Foundry, but you can run Foundry at a table, or you can play completely at a table. I was really impressed with you had 3D minis that you could print out or even get printed. You had custom character sheets and such, which looked gorgeous. Whoever artists you are paying, they do great work. How do you go about designing a 3D model of these monsters?
It's quite interesting. So the whole making of the magazine, we've just started doing a YouTube mini series on our Crucible YouTube channel, which is still growing. We've still not kind of got all the framework, everything sorted out. It's like, hey, we're going to kind of pick away at it while we're doing the Kickstarter. And so I go into actually the making of the Drazon Delve adventure, and starting from the initial concept to the artwork being made, and then on to the actual STLs. And it was just a process. We have an idea of what we want it to be. We've managed to throw it over to some amazing artists, which I guess it's like if you're a game developer, you get your concept artists, and then we pass the artwork over to the modelers. And it was literally just a guy called Jamie that we reached out to on Fiverr, which is very hit and miss. If you're going to try and hire somebody on Fiverr, then be prepared. But he was fantastic, and we're like, "Hey, man, we want 4 models making. Are you interested?" He's like, "Yeah, fantastic." I was like, "Are you maybe interested in making 4 models every month, maybe for our issue?" So that is an intended plan. We'll kind of see, because again, it is just paying. It's everything that we want to do. It's just going to cost us more money. It is paying extra for making the character sheets, the printable character sheets, the fully illustrated, and they're not just a single character sheet. It is like a 3-page character sheet, and you can get that for free as well. If you go over to the Kickstarter, it is this just this beautiful 5e character sheet that's been designed. But yeah, the STLs. It was just getting good people on board and kind of going back and forth and making sure that what they're doing matches up with your vision. But that's the case with hiring anybody on. You've got to have that kind of flexibility between, okay, I want you to kind of put your stamp on it, but also also it needs to be what we want.
It's hard enough with hey, here's a monster I have, make an piece of art for it, or a model for it, or a token for it. But you're doing potentially all of these things, and that sounds really difficult. How much time are you spending coordinating all of these things?
Too much, Cody. Too much time. We've got a good team. So there's me and TJ that are the main people, and then we have Harrison. So he's been the one that's kind of coordinating a lot of the manufacturing and stuff, and dealing with some of the logistics and numbers. But yeah, in general, we've just got a Discord channel that's just got a load of different creators. We just have a private chat with them all, and just keep on top of it. And as long as you are kind of open with people. There's so many times that people will bring us stuff back, and you just got to be like, "That's great, but no, it needs to be, sticking on with the vision." But yeah, it is definitely spinning multiple plates whilst also juggling cats at the same time. But it's been fun because I'm a busy person. I like keeping busy. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't. But there's not much sleep that's had. I'll be quite honest.
Yeah, that's a fair description of what the last month has been like for me. I'm also in the boat of juggling what feels like too many projects at times, but I mean, if we didn't love it, we wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah, well, and this is it, and it is just one of those things where, like I obviously know a lot of Patreon creators, and there's a lot of them that have done Kickstarters to varying degrees of success. But one thing is always assured: if you start a Kickstarter, your Patreon is going to suffer because you cannot focus the same amount of attention on all of them. And so for us to do it whilst also in an economic downturn, it wasn't a great idea timing wise, perhaps, but I think there's a gap. I think a good magazine is needed, especially in terms of the way that we do it. There's other people that do it, like Matt Colville's got Arcadia, and it's just a completely different magazine. DM Davis got Broadsword, but it's just a completely different magazine. What we've done is try to kind of lean heavily into that magazine content. We have a 4-page color comic in it. We have readers' letters that people can, write in with advice or comments. And if you get published, you get like a little freebie gift sent out. Back in the day of when we all used to get magazines, and maybe it's a generational thing, but I think it's definitely something that I loved, and I think it's definitely something that everybody else that checks us out will love as well.
I was barely a Dungeons and Dragons player.
Yeah,
I leaned more into other game systems, as many people are aware, but I was still a subscriber monthly to both Dungeon Magazine and Dragon Magazine when they were a thing. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that was, and I'm dating myself here, like 25 years ago, but there is certainly a market for it, and there's certainly that nostalgia of like, oh, what's going to be in this issue, and let me see what new ideas I can have to foist off on my players. And then you take that and then throw Foundry built-in content on top of it. It's a very attractive approach.
And that's it. It's about making it very plug and play as well. That's the whole thing with Foundry. You don't want to be turning into a Foundry module and having to do the hard work. You want it to be ready, and that's what these adventures that we've got are. We've got there are different level ranges, but I think most people are kind of used to kind of like scaling things up and down. If they're like, I like the concept, but my players are a bit too high level or a bit too low level. But we've also got in the magazine, we've got an adventure path. So the first adventure for it is Sea Giant's Cove, and it starts at a level 3 adventure, I think. Should probably know that off the top of my head, but I don't. Why don't you all go and check the PDF and let me know? But it's a continuing story. So for the next issue, it carries on the entire story arc, and that will go through up to level 10, I think, is what we're planning. We're planning, like, at least around about a year's worth of issues. So for people that want to have this kind of ongoing story arc that they can kind of slot in between whatever other stuff they've got going on, it's just meat and bones. It's just a lot of content to kind of put in without having to kind of think too much about it. Yeah.
So one question that we often get when we're dealing with content, and particularly D&D 5e content. We got this somewhat when we launched Demon Queen Awakens. We're probably going to see it again with our forthcoming, currently undisclosed adventure we're working on.
The Demon Queen falls asleep.
Are there any plans? Are there any plans to provide like guidelines for converting the content to other game systems? Like Pathfinder 2e and D&D 5e are very different, but there's some ability to cross over if someone's ambitious enough to do the conversion.
Yeah, we do get asked it a lot. It's literally, it's probably one of the questions we get asked the most if we're going to do Pathfinder 2e. There's no plans for it because it does become a hell of a lot more work. But that's with two caveats. A lot of the content in the magazine can be used for any system. Like if you're happy to kind of change around a few stats and kind of do a little bit of the crunch work with some of the stat blocks, and each adventure has round about 2 or 3 unique creatures, including a unique boss. So if you kind of like the concept of the adventure, you like the narrative, you like the NPCs and the descriptions, you like the map that is made, which are obviously system agnostic anyway. If you like all that stuff and you're willing to kind of go, okay, yeah, we'll just convert these, then you've got 4 ready-to-go adventures. You've got the items that we've used. We focus quite heavily on them being more descriptive uses, so they're not necessarily kind of like heavy stat blocky magic items. We made that they're called minor magics because we want people to be able to drop them in without worrying about imbalancing their entire campaign. So even those, they come with beautiful artwork, and so you can take those and go, hey, okay, this says that it gives me advantage on charisma. Well, that's an easy thing to cross over. But then we've got stuff like the Adventuring Days, which is like a double-page spread, which is about overland travel. And obviously with the 5e concept that you're supposed to have around about 6 to 8 encounters every day so that your players are using up their resources between long rests. And so we've kind of done this thing where it's just like 6 or 7 little quest, like plot hooks. It's like, you're traveling down the road and, you wake up in the morning and there is the smell of cooking bacon, and you find a campfire, but it's empty. There's nobody at the camp. And that's it. That's the encounter. And then the DM can use that to make something from it. And it goes through the day, and starting at sunrise, and then it'll go all the way to the watch. Because if you're camping out at night, okay, choose your watch order. And so we've done a little thing where it's like this happens on second watch, so the players get to choose which order they're in, and so it's not the DM necessarily turning around saying, okay, I'm going to do it on that player. It's like, this is going to happen on second watch, and this creature will come out of the shadows and try and pull whoever's closest to the campfire or whatever. So there's loads of stuff in there that is completely usable for other systems. But what I'm hoping is that as the community grows, we're going to get people that just convert it. We're going to get people that will turn around and say, hey, we've done the 2e version, or we've done the Morkborg version, or whatever kind of people are starting to use, and we will kind of forward that back out. We want people kind of looking at our stuff, and if that means getting the help of the community to bring that on board, then absolutely. It's fantasy content, but 5e's 5e. Everybody. That's what's got more people playing, unfortunately.
I think we're getting towards the part where we're going to open up questions to the community. So if you are watching along and you would like to ask Alex a question, go drop your question in Twitch chat. Drop all caps question in front of it so we can easily find it, and we'll start asking away. While people start asking that, I would like to mention, like, I don't run 5e. I don't play a lot of 5e. That looks to be changing over time because that's what people play. But looking through the magazine, it was still interesting because there was like interviews with people in the industry. There were roll tables. There were inspirations. There's really cool art and maps. There's still a lot of perceived value in having this kind of high quality, nicely laid out content and a lot of really cool ideas. I'm also a sucker for comics, so I mean...
Yeah. The comic's great. That's the next making the magazine video that I'm going to be releasing tomorrow, hopefully. And I sit down with Tony over at DireQuest, who me and him kind of co-made the magazine. Like I helped with the storyboarding and writing, and he did all the drawing, obviously. But yeah, and that's the thing with the magazine. It isn't just D&D content. It isn't just playable content. It's a magazine. You know, we want it to be an actual magazine for people. You just get to get it in Foundry as well. And like I said, if you get the Foundry version, then you get the PDF included with it. If you get the print version, you get the PDF with it. Because I hate the What's-It charge you for the digital and then charge you again for the book. It's like, you know, give us both. If we buy the book, give them the digital as well. Damn it.
That brings us to our first question. If people want to give you money after the Kickstarter, how are you going to do it?
So the Kickstarter, when it ends, which is on the 16th, it'll be open for a little while for people to kind of do add-ons and things like that. But it will be going into a normal monthly subscription. And the first issue will be available from May. And that will be our issue 1, our Rising Tides. And yeah, so you'll be able to get the subscription for the print or PDF through our web shop, or you'll be able to get the Foundry version through the web shop, and you'll be able to buy a license key. You will redeem it through Foundry, and you'll be able to do that with each issue every month, and you'll get access to the Foundry version of it. We will also be releasing it through Patreon, but again, it will still be restricted monthly content. It's not going to be, hey, sign up to the Patreon, you get all the issues. It is still going to be a monthly, you buy it, you get it. Patreon for us will literally just be another subscription platform that so many people are used to in this community. But otherwise, it will be just ongoing every month from May. But the Kickstarter, if you want to get them cheaper, then now's the time to do it, and you will make quite a decent saving by signing up now. You can sign up for either 3 months through the Kickstarter or for 6 months. The higher you pledge, the more money you'll save. But check out the free one first. Check out the free one if you think like, this is something that I would enjoy every month. Then that's definitely the way to go about it.
I've got to say, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, and I'm also looking forward. You mentioned you're currently leaning on the Adventure Importer. No, sorry, Scene Packager module. Mm-hmm. And we're looking forward to getting the Adventure Import system set up and released in V10 formally. I think you're going to get a lot of use out of it. I think it's going to make a lot of difference to how the content is actually released.
Yeah.
And just make it easier to work with overall. So we're kind of looking forward to that being kind of distributed out there. We've got another question from CCJMK. Aside from Walls and Lights, what features of Foundry do you enjoy most for map making, and that you would most want in your maps?
Okay, so what do I enjoy the most? I love the canopy element now that it got added core. There's still some things about it that I don't like, which I told Atro at length. Obviously, Ripper's better roofs. Ripper's roofs kind of helps with that kind of thing for like indoor-outdoor stuff. But the canopy was definitely a step in the right direction. I love the open development of Foundry. That's the best thing about Foundry, that people can make these modules that, you could do it to a small degree with Fantasy Grounds, but to a very small degree. You can't do it with Roll20, so, so Roll20 hasn't changed for the last however many years. But with Foundry, it has allowed me, like from day one, the second theme that I ever did was using Token Attacher. And it was making the modular tiles. People have probably seen it with my stuff or with Bailiwick's stuff, where you can attach the tile and all the walls to a token, and you can place down a building or modular tiles. And we've done some crazy stuff with it. We've done like a rotating maze dungeon that, when people kind of come to one bit, it all turns around and then they can't get back out that way. And, we've been able to do some pretty impressive stuff with that. Levels module is great, very complicated, absolutely bane of my life. What would I love to see the most? Do you know? I think I got asked this at PAX, and I think I was generally like, do you know what? I do just love it as it is, and there's always going to be little tweaks here and there that can help, but as far as it goes, there's nothing major. I'd like to see something. Actually, the only thing that I do find frustrating is walling ledges in maps. That if you use the terrain walls, if it ends up like a horseshoe and you're on this side of the thing, you can't see the other side of the ledge that you're the same height as. That is the thing that upsets me the most. And I said, that was like from day one when I was doing, I think it was when I was doing the caves, actually. You might have said like, hey, you've not done any walls yet. I'm like, for good reason, because they're terrible. So do something about it. So 2 years on now, where we at?
Good God, has it been 2? There's no way it's been 2 years.
Well, I started my started my Patreon in May, so we're coming up in April. So we're just shy of it. We're coming up to the two year part. Yeah. Yeah, no.
I mean, I've almost been at Foundry a year, so.
Yeah. You and me didn't have any grey hair when we, 2 years ago now. I made him feel old. Yeah. So
where did the last 2 years of my life go?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm right there with you. But yeah, my thing was always if you could do something where, if I don't know, I made a big suggestion ages ago, but it was probably around about a time that was early in development where everybody had a suggestion. So
that hasn't stopped. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We do have plans, but there's certainly other things that have to be dealt with on the canvas level before we can make significant changes, like, for example, bringing elevation into factoring when, calculating vision.
Yeah, and I get it. So, you kind of... This is the thing. You make do with what you've got, but when the toolkit that you've got is what it is, it's like, yeah, that's okay. Because all you do is picking the little things. It's like, well, I've not got that very specialized tool, so what the hell? It's like, it's fine, you can do that with specialized tool because you've got the full set of stuff. And this is it, especially if people have kind of played on other VTTs. I think you kind of appreciate, once you kind of get over that slight learning curve of Foundry. What a sandbox to play in. Told you.
Well, don't worry. We've got plenty of development work ahead of us. So even if you run out of ideas, even if the community runs out of ideas, which they won't, we have so many ideas we could do years of development ourselves.
Yeah, it's like you say, but everything's a priority, right? There's a million priorities, and
that's why we have one day a month where we don't have to worry about priority, and it's my favorite day.
Yeah. I don't think ledges and seeing across to another ledge is necessarily high up on that list of other stuff. But
man, that just sounds annoying to set up as a GM. I would absolutely use maps that did it for me.
I mean, it all depends on what the actual wall tool does, right? I mean, walling in Foundry is easy, so it's pretty intuitive. But yeah, that's just always been my peeve. Because there's so many people that want their ledges walled, and I hate it. I hate having a walled ledge. It's like, but if I want to climb up the wall, then the DM now has to control it to move the token, and you can't see up the wall. Anyway, don't get me into it.
Look, we just have to do some advanced calculations about the steepness of the wall and how much over the top you should be able to see from where you are. It's easy. Just the whole
get on it.
Get on it.
Yeah.
We got a question from Estrada. When you started your venture into map making on Patreon, did you ever imagine your efforts would take off like it did?
Oh, can I answer that without sounding like really arrogant though? Because if I don't, I was like, well, yes, I thought, well, to a degree, it was quite funny. So I was posting on Reddit, and I'd commented on Cheapaku's maps. he'd done this map, and I made a comment on it, and you know, it was a constructive criticism. I'm saying it like I presume everybody who knows who Shepeku is. Czepeku. Most people do, but it blows my mind that some people still don't. So the biggest map making Patreon is Shepeku, and so I put this constructive criticism on his map, and he replied, and I was saying, "Oh, I'm looking to get into making maps myself. I'm starting up a Patreon next month," and he said, "I'd maybe reconsider doing fantasy stuff because there's so many people that do fantasy maps. Maybe look at doing like something a bit more niche, like sci-fi or Wild West or Apocalypse or something like that." It's like this is because of all the creators that you see, and this probably still stands true somewhat. There's probably only about 10 of them that can do this full time. There's only 10 of them that make this a full-time living. And my response was, yeah, no, I get that, but I just know that the market's with Thingy, and that list of 10, I think it'll be 11 very soon. So that was my reply, and just such a dick, but not, just confident.
Hey, confidence is important.
But I wouldn't have done it otherwise. If you don't think it's going to do anything, and I had to because I'd shut down my business. So I was like, okay, well I'm in. See, that was the thing for me. I was able to start doing it full time. The problem is when people are trying to do it alongside doing something else, and they want to switch over, because you always reach that point where it's like, you now need to do double the amount of time and effort to now take it to that next level where it's going to make you an income, and you're still going to get to a point where you need to just go for it. You need to jump with no safety net and go, I hope this works out. And for some people it will, and for some people it doesn't. And there's a lot of people that kind of hit a plateau or they hit a ceiling where they don't know how to kind of like push through it. But I was like, when I started off, the thing that I did differently to everybody else is everybody was kind of trying to follow the Shepeku model. They're all doing like $1 tiers pay per creation, and I kind of like came straight in with like, no, it's $20 a month, because I jumped on the Foundry wagon. I'm like, this is new and there's nobody making Foundry content, and people thankfully loved what we did. Like when I started off, we had, I think it was like the first 100 people that signed up to my Patreon 2 years ago, they could sign up to it for $15 a month, and I've still got 26 people of that first 100. I've still got 26 of my first 100 that ever signed up. So we must be doing something okay. But yeah, it's a tricky thing to do, I think.
Now imagine someone like you is in the audience right now. What is your biggest advice you'd give them? And it better not be, I'd recommend against fantasy maps.
Yeah, all you need is cruciblemag.com. It depends what the question. To get into being a Patreon creator, to get into making maps, it depends exactly what they're wanting to do. I would genuinely say at the moment, and it might just be, it's the same advice that Shepeku said, I wouldn't do fantasy maps. But my reason is different, because when I started, Incarnate didn't do battle maps, and Dungeon Draft wasn't out, and now it is. You go on Reddit, and that is all you see. Like the people that like hand create their maps now, you are fighting against the tide. But yeah, I would probably focus on doing sci-fi stuff. I want to do some sci-fi stuff. We've kicked about the idea of doing the Mad Cartographer for quite a while and doing sci-fi content. Because I played Star Wars Cyber Edition, I played Edge of the Empire, I love sci-fi stuff, I love cyberpunk stuff, I'd love to do it, but I made a magazine instead, so that's kind of had to be sidelined for now. But yeah, make sci-fi stuff for now. Yeah, or if you are gonna go into doing stuff, maybe now find a niche. I think people are getting a little bit of 5e fatigue, so kind of other systems are doing pretty well. There's a bit of a lower ceiling, but it's kind of easier to hit in comparison to try and kind of make yourself known in the 5e industry.
There's definitely gaps in modern and sci-fi assets for virtual tabletops. Brass Badger is the only one I know of immediately to hand that focuses solely on modern and like sci-fi art assets for map making.
Yeah. In terms of sci-fi, you've got Frag Maps, you've got Miska. Miska still does stuff as well. And just a shout out to those guys.
Yeah, sorry. Just for clarity, I was only talking about assets as opposed to full maps. But yeah, Frag Maps and Miska are the two big names when it comes to sci-fi. But we see requests on an almost daily basis in the media assets channel on our Discord. You know, where can I find an asset for an office cubicle and stuff like that? And I'm like, well, if you don't like Brass Badger, then you're out of luck.
Yeah.
I've been curious, and I'm surprised no one else has asked this at this point, but you mentioned you hand draw your maps. What software suite do you use? What is your process?
Yeah, originally I started with Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop. I have a drawing tablet, so it's an on-screen drawing tablet. But I very, very quickly switched over to Clip Studio Paint because there's some tools in there. I was going to say, I'm not going to shout him out. No, but everybody knows who Forgotten Adventures is because that if you're ever looking for an asset, it's like, go for Forgotten Adventures because they've got everything. Strixon releases Clip Studio paintbrushes for basically, it's kind of like Photoshop, but as if you're drawing with the assets like you would with Dungeon Draft or something like that. So that's why, because I originally saw a video of Strixon's showing him using Clip Studio Paint, and I was like, that's what I'm doing. That's the program that I'm going to use. And I just contacted him, I'm like, hey, man, can you kind of like early on, he was kind of like giving me advice and tips on like how to kind of like use the software and, you know, what I could do. And it just helps in a million ways. And that's why we can kind of make as many maps as we do a month. You know, we make 12, you know, plus decent sized maps. You know, they can be kind of like up to 40 by 60 hour maps. And we do 12 thereabouts every month. And we, you know, from next month, we're now starting to release all the assets that we've made because we've got like thousands of them that we used to make our maps, but we just always kind of like box them off in our top tier. So our Patreon next month, the Mad Cartographer Patreon anyway, is going to kind of shift heavily into releasing our assets, but unfortunately, no sci-fi ones just yet.
Yeah, with all the software coming out, like, you know, Dungeon Alchemist is coming soon. Dungeon Draft has become really popular. You know, there's all these other things, but like those are Dungeon Draft really was like an explosion in people making stuff with it. I view it like people who make Unity projects. You can definitely make a good-looking and fun game in Unity, but if you're using Unity stock assets, it just kind of feels like it's your side project. People who make custom assets and such and then use those softwares tend to it looks really good. So if I were an aspiring map artist, I'd at least make my own assets if using Dungeon Draft. I cannot, however, draw.
That is kind of the way it goes. And the thing is, though, and this is, I think, why we're doing it a little bit differently. Like, Forgotten Adventures focuses on doing assets. We've always focused on doing maps, and now that we're kind of like going into the asset game as well, you still got to kind of like bridge that gap because the reality is that most people do not have the time or inclination or creativity to make their own maps. They just want stuff that's pre-made. You know, I think that's kind of like a bigger issue for a lot of people. But sometimes you've got a map. They've got a map that they like, but they just want, you know, like a big dead body in the middle of it, or, you know, they want to customize the maps as opposed to build them from scratch. So yeah, like with the Mad Cartographer, we're trying to be all things to all people, and it is, you know, it is all my maps. It is all the Mad Cartographer maps in Crucible, and yeah, we'll kind of, I imagine at some point we'll kind of be releasing, you know, extra assets and stuff like that with Crucible magazine, but we'll see. We don't want to kind of like bridge that gap into it being like another Patreon subscription kind of thing.
Yeah, in the past year, I've seen like people start shipping clean versions of their maps, which is like really interesting. As like you can, here's our idea for the map here, but here's a clean base if you want to adjust it. Yeah.
I mean, that was a day one for us on the Mad Cartographer. So we've got our blanks. We've got so many blanks. Like you do a dungeon. It's great because there's certain map makers, and I'm not going to name any names because it's being a little bit negative, but if you make a map and then there is, a huge dying spider in the middle of it, that has defined the narrative of that map. It's either being used for that or it ain't being used. So the blanks, I think, are always great. People want utility. People that if you want to make money off a single map, just go and make a forest crossroads and you're fine. Because the forest crossroads, there's a million of them out there, but they're always successful. You go on Reddit, they're always the ones that have the most upvotes. So yeah, like the blank stuff, people creating their own stuff, is always useful.
So you mentioned that you're branching out Mad Cartographer's Patreon to include assets. What's your plan for commercial use of those assets? Is there a plan?
Yeah, because we get asked for it all the time. We've been asked from day one whether our maps and assets are usable commercial. We've always allowed it for streaming. If you stream, your games, go nuts. If you do paid DMing, you can use our stuff, no problem. But we're always very kind of protective over our stuff, and with good reason, because it is so easy to take maps and take assets and make maps now. With the new change next month, our top tier, which is pretty much our Foundry tier, is also our commercial tier as well. So yeah, maps will be available, assets will be available. There are going to be some restrictions. The Foundry making Foundry content commercially is probably going to be, for now, one that's up there, because I think that will probably compete with us too much too soon. But if people kind of want to make stuff for lesser VTTs, or they want to make it for make content for their own Patreon, if they just want to make make maps and release them, then yeah, we're on board with that, because everybody's just at a weird spot now. Nobody's got any money, and that's the thing. So we kind of want people to either be able to make their own stuff, customize their own stuff, or try and make a bit of pocket change here and there. Because you're never going to make a million off using other people's assets unless you're doing something very different with them, i.e. Bailiwick. It wasn't so much that he was making maps, it's the stuff that he was doing with the maps were people aren't, they were buying that content as opposed to buying the maps themselves. If you're going to be an incarnate artist or a dungeon draft artist, you're going to hit a ceiling. You probably make enough for some pocket money and kind of help with the builds here and there, so go for it. But there's going to be a much lower ceiling because you're restricted by the assets that you can get off other people. And you kind of mentioned Dungeon Alchemy, same kind of thing. You're going to be relying on whatever 3D assets they put out. As great as it is, as great as it can be converted into directly into Foundry, these things are fantastic. And anytime something new like this comes out, when Incarnate started saying, hey, we're going to do battle maps, the lament across the creators Discord for all the map makers, oh my god. But it's fine because they are still restricted. There's still stuff that they can't do, and people, like I said before, sometimes they don't want to make their own maps. They still just want to get other people's.
Well, I think we've run out of questions, and we've probably brought this session to a close with our guest speaker. Alex, it's been great talking to you. Absolutely fantastic to get some insight into the kind of formative process behind Crucible coming into existence, and some insight into what your process is as a content creator and your love of the software, that kind of thing. It's been really wild. That totally wasn't the whiskey bottle I just knocked over, I promise.
Sounded very empty.
The level of commitment you've got to the software is just fantastic, and it's great to see people embrace Foundry for what it is and just really dive full into turning it into a career. So I'm really satisfied and interested to see where Crucible goes and the content that you produce over time. Looking forward to seeing the first issue of Crucible, the non-free issue of Crucible, hitting Foundry.
Me too. And with all your help, we can make it even better.
If you want to get access to Crucible while it's still being Kickstarted, there is 5 days left to go. It's already been funded, so hopefully that means you're actually going to mail a magazine. Please mail me my magazine.
I will make sure I'll hand deliver it to you.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you,
everyone,
Alex.
please go to Kickstarter and check out Crucible magazine. I posted the link earlier. Perhaps Cody can repost it now. But we are definitely looking for more people to just throw in if you're interested in this kind of content. This is a great way to keep Alex and his team motivated. Just buy in, get that subscription, and see where it takes you in a month or two when releases are coming down the pipe.
We've got some good stuff. The first
Well,
issue was
thanks again
good.
for coming.
No, thank you guys. Thank you for the invite. Always a pleasure. It was great being on the panel at PAX. It's always great to talk to co-Foundry enthusiasts.
Good to have you. We're going to talk briefly from here on out as we usher Alex out of the room. We're going to talk briefly about some of the, I'm sure you guys have noticed, the ramp up in premium content and exclusive content that has released over the last month. So we're going to do a quick rundown of some of those. There's just plain too much for us to drill down on and get every single one, or we'd be here for the next 45 straight minutes talking about each one. But we do have some we'd like to highlight from recently. Obviously, we want to talk about the fact that we released Demon Queen Awakens, which was our first official Foundry Virtual Tabletop produced adventure. We released that in December, and it's currently available on our Patreon for our top tier patrons. Unlocks in Foundry Virtual Tabletop for installation, and I'm proud to announce that while I can't tell you where it's going to be sold just yet, we have entered into an agreement and it's going to be available for purchase very soon as a one-time fee, so you don't have to subscribe to the monthly Patreon to get it.
I was thinking a lemonade stand style setup at the end of my driveway, but we'll see.
We're going to set up roving mobile locations with a Foundry VTT, not ice cream truck, with a D20 on the top, and it'll play like random battle music from like tabletop RPG music as it goes around neighborhoods.
I like it. I'll pitch it to the boss. I'm sure he won't shoot down this idea.
I get to drive though, okay? Can we agree that?
Yeah, all right.
We'll sell licenses out of the like front window and content out of the back window.
Hey kid, you want a Foundry license?
Maybe we can sell some dice merch. Hey kids, you want to buy some D20s?
Well, let's talk about some of this premium content.
Yeah, the thing that I set up and then promptly derailed to talk about Foundry ice cream trucks. Let's talk about... right, we recently entered into Patreon agreement with Kaora, who has brought, I think, all of his content to Foundry VTT through the Patreon subscription model, including more than 300 maps, 2,000 tokens, and some kind of crazy script that maps all of those tokens to 5th edition creatures. It's kind of wild, really. I want to specifically shout out Matt. Some of you may know from Encounter Library, but also Foundry staff, for the work he did partnering with Kaora to help bring that to us. CCJMK says, can you rewind to the part about mapping the tokens? Apparently the script for Kaora's module actually automatically places the token art on the appropriate creatures. I have no idea how it works. Don't ask me any further questions, but all of Kaora's 2,000 tokens map to the appropriate creatures, therefore.
And we actually interviewed Kaora an episode or two ago. I dropped a link to that in chat if you want to see us interview Kaora about what he does, what his process is like, how he makes all this content. Give it a watch.
Cody, we just announced Rise of the Drow. You want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, it's a huge piece of 5e content. It has over 550 pages. That is probably good for at least a few sessions. It's a campaign that runs from level 1 to 20, focused around the Underdark. Probably too long for a one-shot.
Yeah, just a pinch. It's actually one of the largest pieces of 5e content I think I've seen come to Foundry since the Cobalt Press stuff from last year. Absolutely humongous amount of content. Totally crazy. Just, I can't imagine the work that had to be done to convert it.
Someone's already asking about performance of that. I'm guessing it's all mostly stored in compendiums, so you can keep your world not 550 pages of content full at all times.
There is a reasonable question about the performance if you import everything, but that's the case with any import. If you import a lot of stuff, you're going to want to store what you're not actively using in the compendiums just for general performance.
It's not the only piece of large content we had. Tell us about Warhammer.
Yeah, the Altdorf premium content pack, right. So apparently includes 300 journal entries, which converts lore, locations, that kind of stuff, and full color maps, already mapped with like over 100 journal entries pinned to the map, ready to go. It's really comprehensive. I think didn't we announce one this morning? I think we announced one this morning.
Let me double check.
Not related to Warhammer. Yeah, we just dropped, for our German speaking audience, we just dropped a new Dark Eye piece of content. It's
as always, the best place to see our huge and increasing stream of premium content is the content announcements channel on the Discord. Alternatively, if you don't want to see and hear those pings, we have an opt-out mechanism in the Discord. You can click the button and not be, mentioned.
You can find that in the role management channel. There's also the Kickstarter for Pirate Borg, which I think is closed now. I'm not 100%. I should probably double check. From our good friend Limithron, which some of you may remember from the Porvenir adventure that was released for free. And the... nope, not closed just yet. If you guys are interested in content from Limithron, the Pirate Borg Kickstarter is currently running, and it's an art-heavy RPG based on more Borg. And it's going to include a full Foundry VTT conversion for it, so if you guys want in on that, probably best to get in before the Kickstarter closes. Not sure what their plans for selling it after the Kickstarter are, so get in while you can.
You can tell that we have more and more premium content because we know less and less of the details about what they're doing after our blurb that we've noted down. The last premium one I think we'll mention today, new Patreon, Night Owl Odyssey, I don't think we mentioned yet. They do multiple adventures every week, maybe not every day, using battle maps, unique creatures with art, and journal entries.
Yeah, we've actually hit a point where we have something to announce almost every day, and Matt has been on top of that and taking the reins and really leading when it comes to just making sure everything is ready to go for each of these. We've had content for Vaesen, release in the last 2 weeks. Just updates to map packs and new free stuff. And I worked with Cozy Maps to help get a free package from them out. And it's just, there's so much stuff that we're releasing that a lot of it's free for the average user, and the premium content is all reasonably priced, and it's just a constant stream is the only way to describe it for the amount of stuff coming to Foundry through premium and free content. So if you guys are looking for stuff to do with your players, there's a lot to grab.
As part of some development efforts, I was in charge of uploading premium content for just 1 week. Like one. And I think I had to do like 8 in one day and 5 the next. And Matt's like, oh, it's not that many. I'm like, Matt, this is what you're doing every day? Calm down, please. It's a lot of content. But for, it's not all paid. Your Foundry license is accruing value every single day. Let's talk about some of the free content.
Yeah, we brought a quick start for Turg. Turg is a game system. Torg Eternity that you can actually grab for free right now. It's called Up the Creek. It's kind of a quick start for people who want to jump into Torg Eternity and get used to it. In addition, because of course it's free content, it uses the free system. You can actually buy the premium content system content through a add-on module for Torg. We've dropped, I mentioned Cozy Maps, but we also, for the sci-fi fans out there, I worked with Frag Maps to release an update to the Frag Maps content pack, which currently includes some overhead tile usage and a lot of the new advanced lighting features from version 9. I think Matt worked with Chibin Grove on something, but I'm not 100% on what it includes.
I think
if you're a fan of Chibin Grove, it's also available through their Patreon for even more content. I feel like there was something using card decks that came out recently.
Deck of Many Bones?
Yes. Deck of Many Bones from... Oh man, my memory is awful for this. Absolutely awful. There's just been so many releases. Deck of Many Bones from... Nope, I don't got it.
You've got your femurs. You've got your knuckles. You've got your torsos. You've got your skulls. Maybe there's some feet in there.
Not helpful. Tells no one anything.
Peg did.
So the Deck of Many Bones. All right, I took a minute and I actually looked at the announcement so that I actually have something to talk about related to this. But there's the Deck of Many Bones, which is a free content pack brought to us from Sailor Cat, which includes a bunch of bone-themed items for, I think, D&D 5e, but it may in fact be system agnostic, for just stuff your players can find, including encounters, stuff like that. I think we also dropped a premium content adventure deck for
Peg.
Suede.
Yeah.
I think that was Christian Serrano.
Probably.
I want to say. Man, it's so much right now. We could talk about premium and free content all day.
But the last one, the one that of course will power our Foundry ice cream truck, Tabletop RPG Music, has only 17 more tracks in the free copy. More on that.
Is that over 100 now? I feel like that's got to be crossing the 100 line.
Look, we're going to have a well-stocked ice cream truck of music, all right?
We will. So, as is normally the case, we're going to open the floor to questions for us as part of the Foundry staff. We got a developer here. We got a community guy here. If you guys have any questions about things related to the Foundry VTT software development track we're currently on, what we're doing for V10, plans for last patches for V9, stuff like that. Feel free to direct questions about that kind of thing to Cody. Questions about community stuff, planned content, things like that, feel free to throw questions my way. And otherwise, we'll just sit here for the next 30 minutes or so and act like the complete jackasses we can be.
If you want to see more of our lovely faces and hear the dulcet tones of our voices, we have an upcoming stream with Gameboard where we'll be showing off that integration, and we will likely be doing a dev stream sometime after we release Prototype 1, but not sure yet. Can we get a totally unofficial, non-binding spoiler in some cool Friday coding project?
I'm trying to think of stuff that we would want to even vaguely mention.
Knowledge base improvements.
Yeah, we've got some thoughts about ways we can improve how the knowledge base is interacting with users, ways to make it a little more searchable, that kind of thing. Cody put some great effort in on that, which we're hoping to get to in the near future. May not come out during V10, but we've been working towards it. And I mean, we talked about Lumberjack during a previous stream, but that's kind of backburnered until a future date due to requiring some more specific developments of the API.
Which should be coming in Prototype 2, actually.
Is that on the menu? Did we put that on the menu for Prototype 2?
Yeah, we put that on the menu for Prototype 2.
So there is a vague possibility that our logging system might make it in during V10. I'm not going to make any promises because it may be a lot more effort than we can commit to. Might be an adventure importer thing where we do the groundwork in V10 and finish it in V11. I'm going to skip Timon's question about 1001 Fish, because why? But
wow, what a good and friendly community manager.
Yeah, it's okay. He knows me. He knows my attitude. He knows better. Let's talk about exciting features to look forward to in V10 Prototype 1. Cody, what number one exciting feature are you looking forward to that we can actually disclose that we're doing?
Well, believe it or not, our GitLab is public, so everything we're doing for Prototype 1 is in fact out there and you can go look at it.
Minus the stuff we're not telling people about because we didn't post to GitLab.
We're an open development company. What are you talking about? The feature I worked on and that I'm excited to put in the hands of developers is Tor functionality. So Atro built some functionality to be able to show some really helpful tooltips over things. I built on top of that, and you can register and guide a user through a Tor, like point at, like, say, the combat tab and be like, this is the combat tab. It's where you can see your active combats. Here's a chat message. Here's how it's laid out. And it can guide a user through, say, new features of your system or how to use your module, rather than them having to read documentation or like look it up. It's not going to be done in Prototype 1. Like, you'll be able to run a Tor and register it, but you won't have a UI for launching it and managing it. Tor, not torrent. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited. There's a lot of new user experience improvements that are happening as well. So it should be easier than ever in V10 to get started with Foundry.
Yeah, in addition, I'll say that we've got kind of some of the obvious stuff. Like, I don't think we can release a Foundry patch without at least taking a small crack at improving the lighting engine in one way or another. So we've got a few things coming in with that. In terms of like specific, really cool stuff that we have scoped, we've got some of it in V10. in V10 Prototype 1, but V10 Prototype 2, I think, is where most of it's going to really start coming together. There's some canvas-based stuff that I hinted at earlier, which I won't go into full detail on. And I'm just trying to think which of these features is the one that gets my attention the most. A lot of them are really just... they're API heavy. Prototype 1 is always API heavy, so it's some of the more advanced changes and stuff that's not really like... it's easy for developers to get excited about, but if you read something like server-side token load related documents allowing for token to link to no actor, that's not something that the average user is going to jump on and go, oh boy, I can't wait for that.
What, you mean the average GM isn't going to be excited to offload background parallel work to web workers? Oh, you know what? Font Awesome 6. We're updating the icon set for that we use. We were on Font Awesome 5. Now we're on Font Awesome 6, and we have a card icon now. That's cool. Didn't have that before. Someone asks, are we consulting with any module developers? Are there any helping? One part of, I assume, why I was hired is because I am a system and module developer. I don't just play or develop. I am involved with that community. I work with them. I help corral them. But we do frequently work with and consult with devs and ask, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Hey, I know you're working in this zone. What learnings and findings did you have from it? We go and we say, hey, what things are getting in your way? How can we help you with it? We also do that with creators. Pretty much every release, we ask the developers, what can we do to help you the most? Creators, what can we do to help you the most? Publishers, what can we do to help you the most? Foundry internal, what can we do to help ourselves the most?
Yeah, there's a lot of communication that happens behind the scenes. I think a lot of people don't realize just how much effort we put into tying in with community developers and content creators and stuff like that, just to try and make sure that we're not letting too many things slip through the cracks. We want to make sure that we're providing as much support as we can for all the various disparate communities we have. So there's always communication with various developers for a lot of side projects. And of course, when we're focused on specific parts of the software, if we need insight from a module developer that, for example, spends all of their time eating, sleeping, and breathing with, say, journal entries, then we might reach out to them and communicate and go, okay, so we're thinking of doing these things. Do you have any insight you'd like to offer, or anything that we should avoid doing if we don't want to block you from continuing to support your modules? Because we don't like to release content. We don't like to release software developments that unintentionally negatively affect developers. We have a very good working relationship with the development community, and we want to maintain that. So yes, we are in communication with some developers more as time goes on.
Let's see. I don't see any additional questions. Nath, anything that you want to share?
There's one question here from Artemis Themp about ping functionality coming in V10. I don't know, maybe?
Wow, what an answer, Nath. I'm glad you took the time to...
I wanted to bring it up just because I didn't want them to think that we missed it, but we have nothing we can disclose on whether or not that's going in at this time. There's a lot of developments that we can't share a whole lot about, as anything we say as a possibility can often be taken as a guaranteed commitment. And it certainly isn't scoped on the milestone for V10 at this time. Did I answer that generically enough? I think I answered that generically enough.
I don't know, man.
Didn't give anything away. I'm subtle. Smooth.
That's been playing cool. Is there anything else that... I know there's so much else. But, like, I don't think there's anything that's for this stream. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about when we do a dev stream. I think I'm definitely excited for when we can, show off what Game Board has been working on. I'm hopeful that there are other partnerships in the future for that kind of thing as well. I'm hopeful that we'll start selling shirts at some point too. I know that's one of our goals.
There's one thing that I will vaguely hint at, because there's an announcement forthcoming, and I hate being the type of person who wants to announce an announcement, but sometime in the next few weeks there may be an announcement coming about some premium content that we are working on currently, that I've been eyes deep in for the past 2 solid weeks, maybe 3. I won't spoiler anything, but I will say it is from a major publisher that isn't Wizards of the Coast, and that I think when we announce it, the community is going to be very excited by it.
I hear what you're laying down. The Demon Queen takes her midnight nap, midday nap. I'm excited.
It is certainly for a D20 based system. I'll say that.
Well, that really narrows it down now. So it's not Virago content. Darn.
There's only 50 different D20 based systems?
No more than 50, surely. I think that's probably where we should call it a stream.
Yeah.
Thanks again for everyone tuning in. Sorry for the long break since we last did this. We've been busy. We'll still be busy, but that's what I got. Sorry.
Yep, I think, just to explain, we haven't been doing these because from the December into January, February, etc. months, doing streams, we've been really overwhelmed with a lot of development and content creation and stuff, and being able to commit to doing a stream once a month, while it shouldn't be a huge time sink, finding a place we could carve out a couple hours out of the day to be able to sit down and do that for 2 people on the team just wasn't on the menu. We're hoping to get back to these regularly starting now, so we should be back to normal as of next month and doing these on the regular. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I think it's been great. I think you guys can look forward to some new content in the future. And I hope you guys are all enjoying Foundry Virtual Tabletop and everything that we're working on. I look forward to interacting with many of you on the Discord server and in general. And as always, I guess, keep your dice on the table.
If you're a player, roll high. If you're a DM, roll low. Have a great time, great day, everyone. Thanks for joining.